All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience again as we are doing this hybridity for the very first time. And so for those at home who may have missed any segments, I just want to assure you that we've recorded everything. We will make everything available afterwards. I believe we are caught up virtually and in person at this point. Welcome to our keynote session, Change in Weather Behind Fox's New Streaming Service. And here I am with the people behind Fox Weather, Fox's newest streaming channel that launched on October 25th and has shaken up the weather front. I could use any number of puns with weather, I will not. And I'll just let the interview's title suffice.
Just don't say under the radar.
I won't. Joining me today are Sherry Bird, the president of Fox Weather, the person who owns the finest name in meteorology, about which I'll say nothing, Amy Freeze, meteorologist with Fox Weather, and Greg Herrera, also a meteorologist with the newly launched Fox Weather. A quick reminder to our audience that we will take a couple of questions at the end of the session, but for those submitting them virtually, please use the Q&A in Zoom rather than the chat so we can find them more easily. Sherry, first let me ask you, why weather? Why now?
Well, I think I have our backstory, the origin story of why and when we first started talking about Fox Weather. But I think using a real life example, and the most recent example from this past weekend, where an enormous amount of devastation ripped through the heartland and affected 6 states with such sustained power that that's why we started it. Fox Weather, we're about 7 weeks old, and we knew about we knew about the storms coming. We knew about we're using all of the tools and technology that we have at our disposal. We really mapped it out and planned out our coverage. And we had people on the ground in the field at all of the within the polygon that we had mapped out. We knew the day before that we would be blowing out coverage and going around the clock because we saw the likely sustained length of it. So we went up at 6 a.m. Friday morning, and we stayed up throughout the day and overnight, and stayed on until Saturday night at 10 p.m. The whole point of starting a weather service, whether it's an app, whether you're in news, whether it's an app or a network, doesn't matter what format you're on. You can be, linear or streaming, is human lives, saving lives and warning people and predicting and protecting them, and doing so that causes enough action for them to take action. And I think that's we're very proud of what we did. Our automated alerts on our app reached over 175,000 individuals who had the app. They got the warnings, and that was over several alerts throughout the evening and the night. So it's over 60,000 times we alerted people. It's coming your way, take shelter. They got those warnings. I'm sure they had other apps. Hopefully they do. And you have several options for alerting. But we also heard back from some people who were affected, who sent us notes saying, the fact that you also have a live stream. I was given the warning. I went downstairs. I had the live stream, and sometimes the live stream, as things are happening, you're getting more information there than waiting for the next alert, right? So the combination of building this app, this very powerful app with all of the data and alerts and super fast alerts that you need, as well as this live 24/7 stream, which happens to be a network within the app. That's what we did, and that's I would say that Friday night we were talking about this. It was all hands on deck. Mm-hmm. We stayed up throughout. We went commercial free at one point for 4 hours. Steve Bender And Jane Monar came on at midnight and stayed until 6 a.m. And we covered every single alert and warning and demonstrated it and kept giving context about where we were, where it was hitting next, what damage we knew about. And then 6 a.m. we came up with this fabulous team here.
So battle tested very early. I think we have that sizzle reel ready now. So let's just take a look at that now, please.
Changing the way you think about weather.
Welcome to a whole new world
that will blow your mind.
with a dedicated team of meteorologists.
Streaming 24/7 using game-changing technology.
We're tracking every storm.
And you can follow along with our mobile 3D radar tech, something you won't find anywhere else.
Heading out for the holidays? Future View gives you a long-range look so you can travel with ease.
Weather just got a little more interesting.
Now at foxweather.com.
We had a little debate internally as to whether we refer to this as a channel or, you know, like, what are the semantics here? Is it, do we say it's a network? Do we say it's a channel? What?
Or whether.
We just eschew the old terminology. It's not, doesn't obtain here. So Sherry, how do you know that consumers wanted another national weather option? What data were you working from to build this?
Yeah, we Fox News has a very large and loyal audience. And in some research in not only severe weather, we saw that we were leaving something on the table, right? Because we were, you know, we didn't have a very deep, a dedicated weather outfit, right? So we covered it. We covered it with our fantastic reporters, but we found that our viewers, especially on .com and elsewhere, were checking other websites and, you know, going elsewhere. So that immediately looked like an opportunity, and that was a couple of years ago. So weather always seemed like this very natural extension in the Fox ecosystem, right? It's the perfect cross strap against sports, local news, national news, business. It affects everything, and it's sort of interwoven and part of everything. So we thought weather is certainly something that we can build as a standalone service, but also simultaneously to support and enhance the core assets within Fox.
Was it also time to stop letting Byron Allen be the sole arbiter of national weather?
Well, listen, competition, as we all know, and I'm sure we would agree that, you know, just announcing that we were launching Fox Weather, I think is great for the industry. There's been a lot of attention put on weather. We're doing this panel. There's a lot of other efforts underway at the national and local level. And I think it elevates the industry. So I'm really happy about that. I think any entrance who comes into an established space automatically elevates all of the incumbents, and it makes everyone better.
Well, Byron has said as much previously.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely. But I think really ultimately what it does is I think it really delivers for the viewer. And I think ultimately that's the goal.
Just a couple of nuts and bolts questions about the effort. How big was the hire up for the channel all told, and how many of those people are on the air?
So we started, we announced Fox Weather last December, I believe, January, the very beginning of this year. The first full-time Fox Weather employee was started in February. And then what was amazing over the next 10 months, in the middle of a pandemic, smack in the middle of Manhattan, at 1211 6th Avenue at our company headquarters, which is where we were building the operation, we managed to hire well over 100 people. Not just people though. These are, when, you know, this isn't building a generic service or launching a new, you know, streaming news service, or, you know, or this is, it's weather is a very special and specialized community, and looking at who we needed to hire, who we wanted to hire for this, it was like, you know, to me, it was like building the the U.S. men's Olympic team, the basketball team, right? It was like this dream team. We pulled some of the best people from meteorologists from around the country, from competitors. Some came from within our own company. Incredible, people who came who this was what this is what you want to do. If you're a meteorologist and you have the opportunity, I think, to work on a startup, a complete startup from scratch, backed by a company like Fox, who was going to support it and invest in it and create this new platform that was really geared towards the consumer, where with complete freedom, going live 24/7 and being able to build the product we wanted from scratch was, I think, an amazing opportunity. And I'm so pleased that probably almost 40 people relocated for this, whether it was to New York, whether it was to locations around the country in our bureaus.
And of course, one of them was Craig.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wanted to jump in there. I drove cross country from Seattle. I spent the past 3 years in Seattle. Before that, mostly California, from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And I know everybody says, oh, it's 76 and sunny all the time, right? Not necessarily. Weather on the West Coast is completely different. And I think that speaks to the volumes in that we all came from different regions and that we all have expertise in those specific regions, and we can all share it. When you think of Los Angeles, you think of Santa Ana winds, you think of burn scar areas and the burn areas, and it's all regional. Santa Ana winds are specific to Southern California, Diablo winds to the Bay Area, the microclimates in the Bay Area. The Pacific Northwest gets hit hard. It's not just rain and drizzle. They get hit hard with windstorms, with snowstorms, with rainstorms, and things shut down there when you get snow in Seattle, lowland snow, because they don't have the plows to clear the roads. So for us, it was a cross country trip. And when I talked to Shari, I was like, I'm in. How do I get there? We loaded up the car, the dogs in the back of the car, and we made a cross country trip. And I got to see some states that I hadn't seen before, which was awesome, because when you talk about weather, you don't talk about just a map, right, Amy? You're talking about a region. You're talking about the mountains. You're talking about the lowlands. You're talking about specific geographic points in every area. And that's how you help to forecast and understand. When you're talking about a place on a map, I want to know what it looks like. And I want to know what the people who live there do. It's not about just reading numbers off of a map. And I think that brings us all back to a personal level. It lets us be more personal with our forecasts, with our social media. And it's funny, Amy and I actually, we studied together. We worked in Denver at the same time 20 some years ago. We were 5. And we studied together. So we've known each other for probably 20 years, but we didn't get to work together until now. We were studying our meteorology classes on Colorado Boulevard in Denver, Colorado, different stations. I was a weather producer, you were on air. But it was so great because all of these people, I think one of the unique things about bringing us together, Shari, is that we had time, and Michael, to bond. Whereas most times, as you know, when you bring somebody into a team, this team's already established, but we had a couple of weeks to really get to know each other and to make a unique bond before we actually went on the air or started streaming, I guess.
And Amy, your journey was not quite so far.
No, I did have to come across town, across Central Park, which actually was a point of consideration for me as a New Yorker. So
No
far.
relocation.
Yeah, across the park to go to a different station. I don't know. It's really thrilling. There's a great saying that a boss of mine used to say, and it's we all work for weather when you're in a newsroom or in this industry. And now that the technology supports data that's accessible in so many ways, we can bring that into people's lives and really make a difference, from how they get dressed in the morning to how they pay their bills to how they take vacations, and in the situation that we've seen this week, and how they can save their lives, or unfortunately, in some cases, have to start from scratch and begin again. So it's really been a thrill to become a part of this team, because it just has so much to offer people who are waiting, and I would say hungry for more and more information in weather as it relates to their life. And Shari mentioned, I mean, there's a lot of technology that's out there, but if you've got your phone and you can pop up a tool that takes you, I mean, we're just a few blocks down the way. So if you're looking at the decorations, you can come by and see the All-American Christmas tree. But just a few
2.0 Christmas tree.
Right?
Yeah, 2.0, that's true. You can just open your app very quickly, and you're able to access within a matter of seconds the live broadcast that we're doing right now. It takes about 3 seconds to make that happen. And that's just one piece of the communication that you can create with the viewer immediately.
I was just gonna say, your question before, is it an app? Is it a stream? Is it a channel? Is it a network? You know, we did discuss that early on, and, you know, as the Fox Weather, it's everything. It's sort of this one comprehensive weather experience, which does not exist elsewhere. That's what, when we were doing research, when we really dove into the marketplace and saw that, you know, people have their own strategies for chasing weather information, going to blogs, some use certain apps, some check in with local, national, everything, you know, you have to go 5 different places. So that was our way, and that's why we built this business model for AVOD. The hero product is our app, our mobile app, but then simultaneously, we've created this network within it that will also be distributed more widely.
Which story, and we'll come to that in
Right.
just a moment. I want to come back to the tech in a second too, but
Sure.
just quickly, Amy and Craig, competition for good meteorologists seems to have gotten stiffer by all accounts. I've talked to many GMs and news directors over the past year that it seems like you can jump out of school into better markets or bigger markets, better jobs right away. Do you find that that's the case in your experience?
I do. I mean, it was a little bit different for me in the route that I took, but if you are educated for a specific field, it's very similar to being any other kind of scientist, quite frankly. And so if you are trained for those specific types of topics, there's a reason why you couldn't go into a newsroom right away and as a communicator be able to offer that science and data. And I think that's happening more and more because stations want to have people who are prepared scientifically to talk about the weather rather than a communicator that has gone from market to market to market. And at the end of the day, we're seeing this across the board in any specialty that people talk about. We want educated communicators to give us information. So I think that outlets are recognizing how important the education is to support the communication that's really vital to the viewer. So yes, it's happening, and I think there's a good reason for it.
Let's talk about the tech, if we can, and any of you can jump in on these questions. The tech powering the channel. First of all, your radar arsenal. How much have you built here? How much have you borrowed? How much are you drawing on your owned and operated stations for the?
Sure. What's really exciting for us is that we just have approved this week our Fox weather model, which is going to be new data that's used, and it's specific to our tools that we have across the Fox platforms. We have individual stations that own their own radars. There are also the National Weather Service radars that are run by the government, right? So when I went to work in Chicago at Fox Chicago, I specifically went there because they bought a dual polarity radar. Dual polarity means a radar that scans both horizontally and vertically. That's important because weather happens horizontally and vertically. And so when that new science became available, I was able to go into Fox Chicago, learn how the radar worked, and be one of the first broadcast meteorologists to use that data to interpret weather. And so because we have those stations across the country, we're able to take that radar data, which is more specific, it's more localized, and becomes more accurate for our forecasting. Now we can put that into our Fox model, and that's going to give us more detailed information. Also can increase the timing. Those radar scans more and more save lives, save minutes. Many of the warnings that happened with our severe outbreak over the weekend gave people 10 to 11 minutes to prepare. Might not seem like a whole lot of time when your house is getting ready to be wiped off its foundation, but 10 and 11 minutes is time to get into a safe place, whether it's underground, your neighbor's shelter, whatever, and that is vital information. So we've got great technology we're excited to roll out along with what's available across the board. Now, this is real-time information that I'm talking about, which is the radar data, right? We need the initial point with the best information that gives us a more accurate forecast. However, we've been able to partner with so many amazing companies that we can take our real-time data and apply it to stuff like FlightWare and
I was going to mention that
FlightAware.
FlightAware, as we've teamed up with them
FlightAware.
recently, and it was just in time for Thanksgiving for the big travel holiday. And of course, a lot of people were traveling because of the pandemic and didn't get to travel for so long. So we've teamed up with FlightAware, and we can actually look at commercial flights in the air real time. But we took it a step further and we added our real-time weather data, which is the radar and so you can see where the storms are, the tops of the storms. So I actually got pretty excited. I was like a kid in a candy store the first time we debuted it, because we were on the air and we saw a cell just off of the coast in Florida, and you could see the commercial flight going toward Miami. They were going right into a major storm. Well, that flight diverted a bit to go around that storm, so we could see that. You can see the actual flight and the flight numbers. So if you're watching somebody, my mom's on that flight, my son's on that flight, you can watch them in real-time data and know that they're going to be okay. And they went around that cell. But not only was it a cell on a radar, we popped it up into 3D so you can see the storm tops. It was incredible. You can see the tops of the storms and lightning as well. And I think that's probably why, you know, flights can go through, they're okay with lightning.
And this is what the viewer sees, or
this
what
is
you're
what the
seeing?
viewer sees. We put this right on our stream. It was live, right as it was happening.
I have to say, Craig saw it the same time the viewers did.
Yeah.
That was really fun to watch.
Move the plane.
Yes.
Go right, go
Look.
south a little bit.
Wow.
Look, but a lot of these, you know, Amy had mentioned all of these partnerships that we've developed, and you know, that's one thing we looked at in terms of our investments at Fox News Media, as well as the Fox O&Os. We have radar, we have technology, we have data, we have different systems, we have storm trucks, you know, just resources as such a strong foundational base. But then everything we looked at to supplement, we really looked at adding on not just services that we would add, you know, that you would layer on, but we really looked to unique angles for each of the partnerships. So FlightAware, it's not, you know, we really work with them to figure out what we could do that would better visualize, aside from the map with all the planes, right? That, you know, that we all show and see. It's really interesting, but to be able to take it's called the FlightAware Fire Hose, to be able to take that data, and then our data team and graphics team was able to pull that information together, layer it on 3D radar to be able to bring that to you. That's
And
really
I mean,
unique.
one thing that I think that, let me translate that. It's probably a lot of you flew here to get into New York. I don't know, but you could be sitting at the airport and you're trying to decide, do I buy the window seat or do I
True.
not buy the window seat? Little things like that, you can make those decisions real time because you've got the data right in front of you, and the data is out there. So why should we keep that technology back from people? We should allow them to have access to it at one point, and then help them make those decisions that affect them by giving them all the information right in front of them. So do you spend the extra $65 to sit by the window seat to ride over the Rockies to get here? Make sure that you see beautiful New York City as you land,
Right.
or do you save it because you're going to be overcast conditions, or maybe a bumpy
And we also
flight
looked at
that-
turbulence too, because we talked about, do I want my kids to be sitting by the window seat if I'm in a turbulent flight, or do I need to bring the shade down? And then we took it a step further. We also listed, our graphics team is incredible, listed the delays, the flights, the airports that were most busy, so that if you were flying out of a specific airport, you could see that there were a number of delays or cancellations. Maybe you haven't got the notification from your airline just yet, but you can look at our FlightAware stats and we can tell you where the most delays were real time as it was happening.
And Michael, the other piece is the other partnerships that we've announced and others we're working on, or, you know, really looking at companies that specialize, that have a specialty, that have their own business. It may not be direct to consumer, right? It's more business to business. So we've worked with them to see what would help their, you know, where they want to grow and develop. And a perfect example of that was WeatherStem, based in Florida. They have sensors and like high def cameras in many of the college stadiums
600
all over,
college stadiums.
Yeah.
across the-
and universities. It's not just stadiums, it's universities, because there's distance learning. I mean, they have this footprint already with these sensors that can detect, you know, it's obviously temperature, wind speed, lightning, and then they have them throughout a stadium, let's say. So when you're looking at, if you're doing a game day forecast, you know, everyone will have in Tampa, it's 9 degrees today, but we'll be able to access much more detailed information like on the field, right? So it can be a big difference on the field, kicking a field goal, than from outside standing in the parking lot.
So this very granular data, is this available to the consumer at any point, mostly via the app, or, you know, you have all this data, but how quickly is it at hand to the consumer who wants to know about the window change, or I've never heard of that, but that, you know,
Yeah.
that could happen. I mean, how readily available is this torrent of data?
I mean, this is all our sort of fire hose. So I think that when we're talking about what stories, how it affects, if we're talking about a game, we can access that information. But you know, a lot of cameras around the country. I mean, we're
100,000, is it?
well, I don't know if it's 100,000. It will be at some point. But no, we have we built this matrix with weather metrics and with all of the Department of Transportation cameras around the country, actually around, I think that it's international as well. So it's just a matter of, you know, we almost have too many. Good, the audio.
Sorry.
And so it's so much fun to play with. If you haven't downloaded the app, I'm sure everyone here has a weather app of some sort, but if you haven't downloaded it, it's so easy to use and so fun to use. Even we've got so many options on there, great tabs where you can read all kinds of great stories about, we've got a digital team as well. And Shari and the team has hired not only meteorologists to come into New York, but all over the country to cover, like Scott Sistick, who I know from Seattle, is known all across the weather world and people who don't like weather because of his blogs. And we've got people like this all over the country writing great articles. But if you get on here, it's so much fun, so many great features, even the plan feature. Like I've got my mom's birthday out here, which is October 14th. And I can send this to her and I'm going to tell her, hey, Mom, it's going to be 75 in northern New Mexico, just outside of Santa Fe at 74 degrees. Meantime, my spouse's birthday on January 25th, it's going to be 41 with the wintry mix. So I didn't get rave reviews on that forecast, but you can go out to 10 months and start planning events. But it's so much fun to use. It's so personal. You can personalize it to yourself.
And so that answers the question on how we're making that accessible to people and the way they want to use that futuristic data real time. So impact data is out there. I mean, businesses use it every day to decide what they're going to buy for their stores season to season. Why not make that accessible in a way that affects people's lives day to day? The other way we're making technology available to people at any time is if you want to see the radar, but you don't necessarily want to wait for the forecast or the forecaster to come up, you can pull the radar up, look at it real time, and even go into a 3D mode and look at it yourself, how you want to see it. So that, I think, is the way that we are taking the technology and data available and bringing it to people's fingertips, and then you've got access to us to interpret it immediately.
I want to shift gears and look at how this sits within the ecosystem of Fox. And first, the brand synergies that are happening. I know we're starting to see Fox Business is carrying some of your content. Are we going to see more of that carriage on different Fox networks?
Yeah, we just began simulcasting. Fox Business is simulcasting Fox Weather on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Yeah, last weekend we started 6 to 8 a.m. And you know, we thought that was again, you know, weather affects everything, and we'll be getting more and more into content like that around business, around the effects of it. If you watched Fox News Channel, we were just talking about it a little bit earlier, watching throughout the weekend are incredible journalists in the field who were really first on the ground in Maysfield, right? Saturday morning, as soon as you and Craig came up, journalists all over the country covering severe weather, and they've been all over Fox News Channel, Fox Business, all of our owned and operated stations.
So
And
you'll
they're already
have their
part of
reporters.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
And vice versa.
Vice versa, sure. Yeah, and you know, I think our main news program Sunday night at on Fox News, we had a 6 box, and the top 3 were Fox weather correspondents in the field. The bottom 3 were Fox News correspondents in the field. So it's a great support and a great synergy of ways.
I think everybody is very eager to know what your roadmap for distribution is on cable. So this is your first foray on Fox Business, but what's the end game here?
So, we were, talking earlier when you said, why weather, and, what do people want out of a national, another national weather service? And, when you're building something, new, you have to look at where the audience is, but you have to be consumer obsessed. We always talk about that, right? As opposed to a tendency that we may have to build something based on the resources that we already have, or that we could expand or extend. This was when we did, or the when we did the research, and when we really looked at the business models for launching on different platforms, realized this, weather is overwhelmingly mobile. I mean, 90%. Who here did not check their weather app this morning on their phone? Anyone?
I
Oh,
saw a
there's one
guy,
hand.
I saw a guy in shorts walk in, so he probably
Okay,
didn't.
watch the local news, Channel 5, thank you. But that's, so if you're looking at building a platform, or if you want that success, you have to build it where they are. So we looked at, that's our primary distribution point, is the mobile app. Because once you come in, and that's what we've also found, once a consumer comes in, they stay because they're discovering the Weather Wire, really interesting, unique weather stories. Not like this is how cold it was today here, not like wire service stories. These are unique and really informative and interesting weather adjacent stories, earth, space, lifestyle, right? We really cover it all. Plus these customized features, right? That's what we were trying to build in this app. So it's one weather ecosystem that appeals to anyone. You can control the radar yourself. You can put in your own events. You can create location cards. So it creates like this, a family or friends neighborhood, your own weather community. So you can check in up to 10 locations and really connect with everyone. And that's, and have this access. Oh yeah. And then there's the live stream 24/7 and then all of your data and written and presented in a, I think a very visually stimulating way. But so that's where we started. And then as we were building these two platforms simultaneously over the last 10.5 months, well, the app development, we started really late last fall. So we were building two different operations simultaneously, the network, our beautiful studio and our full operation, and then the app product. And by the time it all came together, these two were going to meet in August, which they did. And I think people were really like sort of shocked at how they were expecting one, mobile app with some live video, but this was really a finished and clean product. And so it's ready for distribution. So right now, long answer to your question, I wanted to give the backstory there. We're on Tubi, and if Tubi is any indication, which is a Fox-owned platform, if Tubi is any indication of how Fox weather will be viewed at home on the big screen, I think we're heading in the right
So
direction.
is it reasonable to say that we will have a standalone channel somewhere down the road here on
I mean, it's everywhere. It's sort of,
cable?
it already is. I mean, well, we'll be going late January. We'll be entering the Diginet space, and we'll be in the Fox owned and operated markets. We'll be we'll be able to reach over the air cable subscription. Fox weather is going to be ubiquitous, and I imagine we plan for over the next year to really be able to access it anywhere on your phone. You can do it now on your iPad, on your desktop, already exists on all of the Fox Nation SVOD app, Fox News, Fox Business.
It's a subset of the
Fox
Fox Nation
Sports.
SVOD when you can.
It's within the Fox Nation app. You can watch it. And then we'll be announcing that we have Tubi, and then I think we'll be announcing soon a couple of more connected TV app positions in addition to the Diginet. So the whole goal is to make it really to have a ubiquitous footprint across all of the platforms, and it's for free. So it's,
And we actually are already on their TV. You just have to hit the button. So if you have your Fox weather app open, or even your iPad, which has already been, the app's been optimized for iPads, you just hit the sync with your smart TV. So really, we're on your TV. All you do is have to hit a button.
I want to ask about the relationship with Fox News a little bit, and the brand identity here, in terms of how distinctive a product is this going to be from Fox News, because you've got, how deliberate is the effort to keep it apart, specifically from the politics of the news brand, which can be polarizing?
well, we're Fox Weather, and we're weather centric and weather focused platform, and that's again why we built it purposefully, right? We had, if you watch how we cover, if you watch If you see the look and the logo and the music and how we use all of our technology, it's really a definitive, I think, an exceptional weather presentation product. We have how many? We have 12 meteorologists. We have over 20 on-air talent, whether in studio or out in the field. And
On top of that, we have access to 120 meteorologists coast to coast with the ability of the Fox platform. So really, it's far-reaching, quite a bonus to have one of the best entertainment companies in the world.
And on top of that, I'll also add that our team that's also helping us behind the scenes are also meteorologists. So not just the people on the air, but a lot of the people that you've hired are also meteorologists, including some of the digital writers and our weather team that puts graphics together and that we work with them as well. So it's a huge team.
When
And
people,
look-
I would say when people watch Fox sports, including the Super Bowl and the World Series, I don't think they're too worried about the polarizing nature. They're quite interested in the entertainment value and the content.
Well, there is one intersection point there. And Sherry, you've spoken to this before, but I want to be clear about it. Where does Fox Weather stand on the science of climate change? Will the channel give voice to any climate change denial from either your own meteorologists or correspondents? Or is that even internally a debate that you plan to have?
it's not a debate internally, nor is it apparent. And if I don't know of how many people have watched over the since we debuted, but we're very proud of the product and how we're covering the science of climate, and that's what we'll be doing. This is, it's not going to be debated or ignored, but it's a fact, and it affects how we live our everyday lives. And our meteorologists are scientists, and our reporters are journalists, and we will be covering and translating the effects of climate change with science and data.
The Weather Channel a while back began making climate change an emphasis of much of its content. Is it safe to say that Fox Weather will do the same? Craig and Amy, how important, as you're doing your daily narrative of the weather, how much does climate change weave into that narrative?
Well, I think climate change is really not up for debate. It's a peer-reviewed science. And so we know that it's occurring. How it occurs and what it's going to mean for our future is up for debate. And those are stories that can be talked about. But what's really exciting is that we've been able to delve into people's real lives and how they're approaching innovation and what they will do in their own communities to adapt to how the weather will be different in the future. And whether that's a chef who's becoming a sustainable farming chef and revolving his recipes around that, or we're dealing with a rapper who's simply doing concerts so that he can then fund information about how the climate is changing in his neighborhoods. Or even COP26, we sent our own meteorologist, Steve Bender, to go and tell the stories of how countries around the globe are looking for ways to live differently in the future. No one that I've ever met is against the environment. So environmental protection stories and the conversations around that are really at the heart of what we do. My master's degree from University of Pennsylvania is in water. So if we are able to protect soil and we're able to protect water, we're going to pretty much be able to come up with ways that we can live better in the future. And I think that is how we're going to face those different climate challenges that are in front of us.
No, and it's true. And I think you mentioned even just having someone at COP26 bringing us stories, the scientific side of the stories, and the way that we live. You talk about you think about the farming community. How do they need to adjust and adapt to the heat and the extreme heat that's occurring them, and the water? I mean, we're missing water in the Central Valley of California, and the Central Valley is a major breadbasket for us. And how do they adjust? The Central Plains with their corn, not only does the corn feed the livestock, but it feeds the people. So these are all stories that impact all of us. So we're delving into these stories, and we're having guests on our show. And one of the beauties about streaming where we are now is that we aren't pressed for time. So we're not getting a wrap. We've got to go. We're letting them tell their story. We're letting them explain how it affects them. We're letting them explain how it affects all of us. Because if we're paying more for the food there, it's going to affect us locally. So it's more than just, what am I going to wear today? It's going to be 55. I can wear, a sweater. Weather's more than that. It affects us long-term. And how do we adjust to those ways of living, as you were talking about. And these are the guests that we have on our show, and these are the people that we talk to, and these are the stories that we like to bring, not only the professionals, but the people who are actually affected. And I know we did a lot of that, especially for Thanksgiving, with a lot of the growers and the pumpkin growers and the frost, and they're losing, it was too hot in some cases, or the shortage of Christmas supplies because of the wildfires up and down Western Washington and Oregon. How does that affect us? And do we need to get our tree earlier? Do we get an artificial tree? What does that mean specifically? So these are all the stories that we'll bring you, and you know, these are stories that you can watch and then make your own decisions on, but these are all scientifically based, and we want to make sure that we're bringing the facts.
And we're using, I mean, that's a focus of ours, is that storytelling of what's happening in the effect of weather and the climate. We're telling it through human eyes, through, you know, the human experience, as opposed to issues, right? Issues and debate. And I mean, we've done some incredible work, in our journalists in the field who have really told those stories, and we're seeking them out. That's our from our lens.
Climate change isn't necessarily all doom and gloom. There are people amongst us across America that are excited about the possibility of innovation too. So that's cool to be able to tell their stories.
I want to open it up to maybe just one audience question. If someone wants to have a question, please head up to if you want to just go to the mic there, please. Go ahead.
Jerry Macri from TDU. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So you obviously have enormous reach with all of your reporters and cameras out there. Have you thought about, or maybe you're doing it already, giving your viewers the ability to upload user-generated content and capture a tornado or a fire?
Coming soon.
Yeah.
UGC on the way.
You
Okay.
look, if there's ever a platform built for interactive UGC, weather is it,
Yep.
right? It's the first, you know, I don't know about you guys, it's the first thing, you know, I do. My mother texts me in the morning, she sends me a picture of the sunrise out here. Oh, come to Florida, it's great. But no, look, this is how we live. We talk about the weather, we take pictures of the majesty of it, of the gloom of it, of the sunshine, of how the weather plays into how we live. So that's a big opportunity for us. And we're also built out with the team that we've built, and the, you know, sort of the way we connect with our viewers. Amy and Craig and so many of our other meteorologists, they really want to interact with the viewers.
And if I can piggyback on that, just as a last question for Amy and Craig. Viewers have a very close relationship with the people who bring them the weather. That sort of everybody in their market has that meteorologist with whom they're very close. And that understanding of locality has been very important in fostering that sense of loyalty. So how are you both trying to, it's challenging to do that on a national scale. And I know we talked beforehand about bringing your Twitter followers over, you know, with you from Seattle. Amy, you've got a big following from here in New York already. But how are you now trying to take your own personal brands and scale that out nationally and connect with people in much more diverse regions of the country?
Well, ourselves, along with the rest of our team, America's Weather team, we're pretty much from your neighborhoods, or we become based in your neighborhoods over time. We were talking about Mitty Hicks, one of our correspondents who lives in your town, there in New Orleans. For me, I've worked in 5 top 40 markets over the course of a couple of decades. And so in those experiences, I've been able to cover both on air and in people's neighborhoods, their weather, getting to know what it's like when the weather impacts their homes, their families. And so connecting those stories daily, kind of coast to coast, from California to the East Coast here in New York City. I've lived in those places, and I think that's what you'll find with our team. And we're able also to tap into the local meteorologists that are there already at the Fox connection that we have. So I think we've got those opportunities because of the people that we are, and how they have put the team together makes that possible to keep that personal connection. We're also, of course, it's a daily conversation through any social media outlet. If somebody wants to know something, they can access it us. And so that keeps that pipeline open.
Yeah, and I think for me, for both of us, all of us, really, for the team, I think it's important to stay in touch with the people who reach out to you, especially via social media. yes, I've got a lot of connections up and down the West Coast, all the way to Denver. So I'm getting new followers on east of the plains, really through the plains and to the east. And anytime we get a message, because we're constantly sending information out, if I get a, hey, hello from Kentucky, I'm going to respond to that person. And I want to say, hey, how are you? Where do you live? And tell me about, your town. I think it's that personal connection that we have to make, that it's not just a heart where you like the comment. It's actually reaching out to them and being, hey, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for watching. You've got to be on top of it every single time. And it's going to be extra work, but it's so worth it, because if they're taking the time to reach out to us, I guarantee we're going to take the time to reach back to them. And whenever we've got severe weather, maybe they're affected. Maybe that's a phoner for us. Maybe that's a phone call that we can talk to. It's a personal connection that we've made with them. And they'll send us video also, even through social media. So these are the personal connections that we have to keep. And I think that for us, it's a matter of responding and not just liking and hoping that we get more likes and more followers. We've got to reply to them.
I know we're out of time. I wanted to just mention one other thing about that connection. It's not just going, when we talk about integrating and providing the service for the Fox television stations across the country, it's a two-way street. They're on, we have an Across America segment that runs throughout the day. Overnight, we have our meteorologists who are doing their regional forecasts on Fox Weather. And we're incorporating them into our coverage. But what's really special is, like you said, that connection. We have so many trusted, respected meteorologists across the country. Paul Delgado in Tampa, Ian Leonard in Minneapolis, that we're building. What's happening is something that's very special and unique, because we're building and they're becoming part of this operation, and we're able to really show who they are and show their expertise.
And I would be remiss not to ask this one question. I meant to ask before, from the sizzle reel. Amy, you're wearing a green dress.
Yes.
Kathy, if you want to.
We can,
how
we
is that
can now wear
possible?
green as meteorologists and not disappear on the weather map.
So much fun.
This could be the headline of the keynote.
Yeah, so we have amazing technology in our studios of huge monitors, so we can stand in front of these and not disappear like we would in the chroma paint of yesteryear. We still do have some chroma
Green
studios
sport
that are
coats,
available.
green neckties, all good.
Yes,
Yeah.
I still need a green tie though.
Well, there's always St. Patrick's Day.
That's true.
I'm going to ask you to stay for just a moment. I want to thank Sherry, Craig, and Amy for a great talk. I just want to ask you to sit tight for just a second, because we have a word from Kathy Haley, who is with Brian Olson from VizRT.
Thanks, Michael. Brian is Sales Director for U.S. Group Stations at VizRT. Brian, the conversation about the cloud is going to get even more active this afternoon, as it's been this morning. The question is, when will live productions go into the cloud, including these?
Okay. Well, first, thanks for having me, Kathy, and I'll try to make this quick so you can go get coffee and water, because I think everybody probably needs a bio break by this point. But realistically, we look back at past 18 months. 18 months ago, we didn't have live production in the cloud. It didn't exist. Fortunately, at the VizRT group, we had been working on both virtualizing live production, which means switching, as well as other aspects of live production, probably for about 2 years prior to when the pandemic hit, and probably about 4 to 6 months before it hit, we actually put our first instance into AWS. And actually, one of the guys that worked for me did it. I'm just going to put it in AWS and see if it works. I'm like, do it. And so I get a call from him like the next day. It just works. Really? It's like, okay, well, that's great. So when the pandemic did hit, I've worked for multiple companies, and this is the fastest R&D pivot I've ever seen. So we were sort of in the skunk works with live production in the cloud, but all of a sudden the whole of R&D said, oh, we got to do cloud now. And that included all our entire product lines. So we made a quick pivot, and over the past 18 months, we have multiple customers doing live production in the cloud. The area that seemed best suited to it was sports and live event. So we have a lot of sports, including some sports networks here and around the world doing it. Live events works great. I think it's because of the seasonal and even episodic nature of sports and live events that allows people to spin up instances, spend their, taxi meter dollars in the cloud and then spin them down again. So, but we have started to see some news customers do some production in the cloud. So we've got a 3-letter network in New York that is doing news programming now for their OTT channel and for it's also airing on their streaming service. We have one of the big tech companies that has a news service that's about to launch some live production in the cloud. So it's starting. So I think news may be the next wave, but there's some things that stand in the way. One is that news is pretty much on 24/7. So those AWS fees or Microsoft or Google fees get pretty expensive. So we're going to have to work that out, how that works. But I think in the short term, disaster recovery, and I think somebody mentioned that in one of the previous panels, is definitely an area. So if you have a pandemic, or I had a customer where the tower fell on the studio, in one of the hurricanes this past year, and they had nothing. And I think my customers here, I see him in the back, whose station group that was. And I think, and he'll correct me later if I'm wrong, but I think they had to take their live truck out and shoot a microwave to the tower to get on the air. And they did news. And I think the rest of the time they put up a test pattern. But if they had an instance in the cloud, which, one of the things that's very dependent on whether you can take a crew and pivot from on-prem to the cloud, is you have to have the exact same workflow. Now, the good thing, all you really need is probably the same automation, production automation on-prem and in the cloud. So you could have automation connected to all kinds of SDI and legacy equipment on-prem, and then put it all up into digital and have that same automation connect to a complete digital workflow. Your operators won't see the difference, but you'll be able to carry on with news for as long as it needs. And then, spin that instance down when you're back on the air. So I think short term, that's probably the first place that we're going to see it. After that, I think we're going to have to change some things about the economics of broadcasting and get rid of some buildings and things like that, and have real estate financing. But okay, the Oscar music is playing. I see it in Kathy's eyes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Kathy.
you, Brian, very much.
And thanks once more to our panelists from Fox Weather.